I was standing in the exam room when Dr. Mara Kline said, in the same calm voice she used to explain blood work, "I need to see you more often." Her hand was on the chart, pen hovering. The fluorescent lights made everything look too honest, my chapped hands, the paper gown tied badly at my back, the small tremor I couldn't seem to stop in my knee. "More often?" I asked. "Like, follow-up labs?" She didn't look away from me when she answered. "Not for medical reasons." I laughed, because that's what you do when a line lands somewhere between joke and truth, but it sounded wrong in that sterile room. She set the pen down. "I'm serious," she said, "and you're going to pretend you didn't hear it. That's also fine, but I wanted to say it once." The door handle clicked in the hall. We both went still. Then her nurse knocked and stepped in with a stack of forms, and whatever had just happened became invisible, folded back into the ordinary. I walked out 5 minutes later with a printout of normal results and a pulse that refused to settle. 3 weeks earlier, I'd booked that appointment because my chest had been tight for days. Not pain, exactly, more like my body was holding its breath. I told myself it was stress, rent, a promotion that hadn't come. My dad's voice on the phone saying, for the 100th time, "You can't keep drifting, Evan." I was 30 and exhausted by how young that sounded. Mara Kline had been my doctor for maybe 2 years. She was the kind of physician people followed across town when she changed clinics. 46. I learned later from the framed diploma date and a half-heard conversation about a birthday dinner she didn't want. She wore her hair in a loose knot, silver threads refusing to be hidden. She smelled faintly like hand soap and black tea. She also had a wedding ring indentation without a ring. The first time I noticed it, I tried not to. The second time, I realized I was keeping track. That morning, she listened to my lungs longer than necessary. When her stethoscope brushed my skin, I hated how much my attention narrowed. "Stress?" she asked. "Probably," I said. "What's the last good night of sleep you had?" I opened my mouth and couldn't answer. She glanced up. "Okay," she said, softer. "We'll start there." She ordered labs. She asked about caffeine, alcohol, exercise. Her questions were normal. Her focus was not. At the end, she rested her forearm on the counter, leaning a fraction closer, and said, "You're not doing anything wrong, but you're doing everything alone." It wasn't a diagnosis. It was a read. I left with my appointment summary and the taste of burnt coffee in my mouth from the clinic's lobby machine. Bitter, hot, impossible to ignore. I told myself that was what I remembered because I was anxious. Then, 3 weeks later, she said the line, "Not for medical reasons." That afternoon I tried to work. I stared at spreadsheets and watched the cursor blink like a metronome for my thoughts. My coworker Jonah leaned over my cubicle wall and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just a doctor's appointment," I said. Jonah whistled. "Bad news?" "Actually, the opposite." He raised an eyebrow, waiting for details. I didn't give them. I wasn't sure I had them. 2 days later, the clinic called. "Your results are normal," the receptionist said. "Dr. Kline would like to see you for a quick check-in." "For what?" "A stress follow-up," she said, and it sounded rehearsed. I should have said no. I should have accepted normal and moved on. Instead, I heard myself say, "Sure? When?" The next appointment was a Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. after hours, technically. The waiting room lights were dimmed. The coffee machine was off. The silence felt like it belonged to a different building. Mara opened the exam room door herself. "Evan," she said. No last name. No clinical distance. "Hi," I said, and realized I'd been practicing that word in my head all day. She shut the door behind me, not locking it, but the click still sounded like a decision. "You're not in trouble," she said, as if she could hear my pulse. "I didn't think." "I know," she exhaled. "I shouldn't have said what I said. It was inappropriate." My stomach dropped with relief and disappointment at the same time. "But," she continued, and the word held. She moved to the counter, fiddling with a box of gloves she didn't need. "I'm separated," she said, finally. "It's not recent. It's just not finished." I didn't know what to do with that information, so I did the only thing I could. I stood very still. "I asked you here," she said, "because I wanted to make sure you were okay. And because I wanted to be sure you understood what I meant. Not as your doctor." The air between us felt too warm. A phone vibrated somewhere in the hall. We both paused, listening. Then it stopped. Mara's mouth tightened. "I have a rule," she said. I don't cross lines. I don't blur roles. That's who I am. And tonight? I asked. She looked at me like the question hurt. Tonight I'm tired, she said. And I'm lonely in a way I don't like admitting. The confession was small. It was enough. I swallowed. I didn't come because I'm sick, I said. I know. I came because you asked, I said. And because someone finally noticed. Her eyes softened, then sharpened, as if she was deciding whether that was an excuse or a truth. Someone notices you, she said quietly. You just don't let it in. That was the pivot, not desire recognition. I laughed once, sharp. Maybe. Mara stepped closer, stopped 2 feet away, close enough that I could smell her tea, far enough that we were still pretending. If we do anything, she said, voice lowered, it has to be clean. No secrets in my office. No unethical mess. My mouth went dry. Clean? She stared at my hands. I'd curled them into fists at my sides. If my colleague walks in and sees you reaching for me, she said, I lose my job. And you lose your doctor. I pictured her name on the clinic door. I pictured it gone. I don't want you to lose anything, I said. Mara's expression cracked for a second. That's the problem, she whispered. I already feel like I've lost my life. It's all rules and responsibility. I'm 46, and I don't remember the last time someone looked at me like I was a woman and not a schedule. The word woman landed heavy. A knock sounded. Not at our door, somewhere down the hall, but it still made me jerk. Mara noticed. She almost smiled. You're careful, she said. I'm terrified, I admitted, and hated how true that was. She nodded once. Me too. Then she did something that wasn't a kiss. She reached out and took the chart from the counter and slid it into a drawer, closing it with a soft thud. No more pretense of medicine. We stop being doctor and patient, she said. Right now. If you want this, you find another primary care provider. I can't be both. The cost appeared, concrete and immediate. I stared at her. You're serious? Yes. I should have said no. I should have protected the safe version of my life. Instead, I nodded. Okay, I said. Mara's shoulders sagged with something like relief, then squared again. She walked to the door and cracked it open, peering out into the empty hallway. Then she shut it. Come, she said, and led me not to the exam table, but to the small staff balcony at the end of the corridor, a narrow strip of concrete with a view of the parking lot and the city beyond. Cold air hit my face. Somewhere below, a car alarm chirped once. Mara leaned against the railing, arms folded, as if holding herself in place. I don't even know what I'm doing, she said. I stood beside her, leaving space. The burnt coffee taste still clung to my tongue. You asked to see me more often, I said. She let out a breath that might have been a laugh. God. A silence stretched. The city hummed. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced down, and the light from the screen sharpened her face. She didn't answer, but I saw the name. Caleb. She swallowed. A second buzz, then a third. Mara's jaw clenched. He only calls when he wants to remind me he can. The line carried history I couldn't touch. Do you want me to go? I asked. She looked up, and something in her expression went soft and furious at once. The sentence rearranged the night. A door opened behind us, the clinic's back stairwell. Footsteps paused. Mara's body went still. My hands, suddenly, had nowhere to go. A young resident stepped out, earbuds in, oblivious. He nodded at Mara. Night, Dr. Kline. Mara nodded back, all professionalism in one motion. When he was gone, she exhaled like she'd been underwater. That, she said, voice low, is why this is stupid. And why it feels real, I said. She stared at the city. You're 30, she said. You should be dating someone who doesn't come with consequences. I've been dating comfort, I said. Mara's gaze finally landed on me. It wasn't flirtation. It was assessment. You think you're unworthy of ease, she said. I flinched. That's true, she finished for me. A pause. Then she reached out and, with the lightest touch, smoothed the sleeve of my jacket and invented excuse to make contact. It lasted 1 second. It changed everything. I didn't kiss her. I didn't need to. Her phone buzzed again. Caleb. Mara stared at it, then did something decisive. She turned it off. The screen went dark. I can't see you as a patient anymore, she said. And I can't pretend I didn't say what I said. But I also can't do secrets. If this becomes anything, it has to be outside these walls, away from my staff, away from the power imbalance. I'll change doctors, I said. Her throat moved. Don't do it for me, she said. I'm doing it because staying is a lie, I said. Mara's eyes shone. Not quite tears. Okay, she whispered. That was our first agreement. Not romance terms. The next week I sat in a different clinic, filling out new patient paperwork while the receptionist mispronounced my last name. It felt humiliating and strangely clean. Mara didn't text. I didn't have her number. On Friday afternoon, an email appeared in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: coffee. Body: Saturday, 10 a.m. The place with the burnt coffee you hate. If you still want to be seen. No signature. My chest tightened, but this time it was something else. Saturday morning. The coffee shop was crowded. Mara sat in the back corner, in jeans and a coat, hair down. Without the clinic lights, she looked younger and older at once. When she saw me, her face did that thing it had done in the exam room. Softened, then steadied. You came, she said. I said I would, I replied. She looked at the menu and made a face. Their coffee is still terrible. I know. She smiled. Real this time. We talked like two people who had never met professionally. About books. About how winter makes everyone look like they're rushing towards something. About my job and logistics and how I felt like a background character in my own life. Mara told me she'd been a doctor since she was 26. That she'd built a life around being needed. That her husband, Caleb, loved the image of her more than the woman. I stayed because it was easier than admitting I was lonely next to someone, she said. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to feed on her pain, but the tension lived under the table anyway. In the way her knee angled toward mine, in the way my hands kept wrapping around a paper cup like it was an anchor. When the barista called Mara's name, Mara, not Dr. Kline, I felt something loosen. Then my phone buzzed. Dad, call me. I stared at it, and the old pressure climbed my ribs. Mara noticed. Family? Yeah, I said. It's complicated. She nodded like she understood more than I'd said. Mine too, she said, and her smile flickered. We left the coffee shop and walked toward her car, the air sharp with cold. At the curb, she hesitated. This is where we decide, she said. Decide what? Whether we're going to keep doing this, she said. Seeing each other, I mean. Or whether we call it what it is, an impulsive moment that felt good because we were both starving. The honesty was bracing. I looked at her hands. They were red from cold, the same hands that had held my wrist while taking my pulse. I don't want an impulsive moment, I said. Mara's expression tightened. Neither do I, she said. But I can't ruin my career. Number one. Number one. Then don't, I said. We do it slowly. We do it right. She laughed once, bitter. You think there's a right way to do this? I stepped closer, stopping short. Yes, I said. We tell the truth to the people who matter. We don't hide. We accept the cost. The cost? She repeated. At that exact moment, her car's Bluetooth flashed as her phone now turned back on caught signal again. Caleb's name lit the screen. Mara didn't pick up. Instead, she looked at me and said, You make me want to be reckless. It was the second pivot. I didn't touch her. I just said, Then be brave instead. Her eyes filled. She unlocked the car and slid into the driver's seat. For a second, I thought she was leaving. Then she leaned across the passenger seat and opened the door for me. Not a kiss. Not a confession. A choice. For the next month, Mara and I did everything in halves. Coffee on Saturdays, walks at dusk, texts that never said what they meant. Because saying it would make it real, she filed paperwork for a separation. Not dramatic. Just forms, signatures, a quiet transfer of belongings. I helped her move boxes into a storage unit on a rainy Sunday. She wore an old sweatshirt and looked exhausted. This is ridiculous, she said, shoving a box labeled kitchen into the unit. It is, I agreed. She turned and rested her forehead against the metal frame, laughing without humor. I can't believe I'm 46 and starting over. You're starting, I said. That's the point. The first time we almost kissed was in that storage unit aisle, surrounded by cardboard and dust. She stepped toward me, close enough that I could see the pulse in her throat. Then, her phone rang. Caleb. Mara's face closed. She didn't answer. I watched her thumb hover, then hit decline. After, she didn't move closer again. She grabbed the lemon-scented wipes from her bag and started scrubbing her hands too hard. You don't have to punish yourself, I said. I'm not, she lied. I didn't push. A week later, Caleb showed up. Not at her house, at the coffee shop. Mara and I were in our corner booth. Cups between us, conversation hovering around everything but us. I was mid-sentence when the bell over the door rang and her posture snapped straight. Caleb walked in wearing a wool coat that looked expensive. He was handsome in a way that felt curated. Late 40s. Maybe. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Mara like he owned her. Hello, he said. Mara's face went carefully blank. Caleb, his gaze flicked to me. And you are? I stood. Because I didn't know what else to do. Evan, I said. Caleb smiled without warmth. Of course. He looked back at Mara. So this is what you've been doing? Coffee dates? Mara didn't flinch. We're separated, she said. Not officially, he replied. Not yet. The barista called someone's order. The normal world kept moving. Caleb leaned closer. You're embarrassing yourself, he said softly. Mara's hands tightened around her cup. Then she relaxed them, deliberately. At 46, she said, voice steady. I've embarrassed myself enough for you. I'm done. The words landed like a door slamming. Caleb's gaze sharpened. Think about your license, he said. The threat was quiet, but it was real. My stomach turned. Mara's eyes didn't leave his. Leave, she said. Caleb laughed. Or what? Mara looked at me then. Just once. A question. A warning. I didn't speak. I just slid my phone out and opened the recorder app, thumb hovering. Caleb noticed and his smile faltered. Mara saw it too. Leave, she repeated. Caleb's eyes flicked around the cafe. He adjusted his coat, reclaiming control through movement. This is a mistake, he said, and aimed it at both of us. Maybe, Mara said. But it's mine. He left. When the door shut, Mara's shoulders dropped. She stared at the table like she could see the threat still sitting there. I can't let him ruin you, I said. Mara looked up. Don't make this about saving me, she said. That's how he keeps me small. I nodded, chastened. I'm sorry, I said. She exhaled. I'm scared, she admitted. He knows people. Then we get a lawyer, I said. Practical because feelings were harder. Mara's lips twitched. You're good in a crisis. I'm only good when it's not my heart, I said. That got a real smile. The next day, she filed the separation formally. A week later, I got an email from the clinic administrator. We received an anonymous complaint regarding Dr. Kline's conduct. Please confirm you have transferred care. My hands went cold. Mara called me that night, voice flat. He did it, she said. Are you okay? No, she said, but I'm not going back. The complaint wasn't about me specifically. It was insinuations, vague, venomous. An investigation meant interviews, records, audits, suspicion. Mara's career, her life hung on rules she had never broken. And I was a risk, even if we'd done everything right. We met in her apartment, not the clinic. She paced the living room, barefoot on hardwood, phone in one hand, the other hand wiping at the same invisible spot on the counter. I hate that he can still reach me, she said. I wanted to pull her into my arms. I didn't, because touching her felt like adding evidence. I can make a statement, I said. I can tell them we ended the doctor-patient relationship before anything. Mara stopped and looked at me. Before anything, she repeated. The phrase made the room go quiet. We need to decide what anything is, she said. My throat tightened. What do you want it to be? Mara's eyes glossed. She swallowed. I want to kiss you, she said, and the words were simple and devastating. Then she stepped back, as if the desire was a dangerous animal. But if I do, she continued, I'll always wonder if I traded my life for a moment. And I can't let him make it cheap. I took a breath. The burnt coffee taste was back, phantom and bitter. Then don't, I said. Not yet. Mara's shoulders sagged. You're not angry? I'm furious, I admitted. But not at you. She nodded once. I walked to the sink and poured out the coffee she'd made earlier. It was dark, overbrewed. Mara watched me, and I felt her seeing all the places I tried to fix things I couldn't fix. You're always repairing, she said softly. The line hit like a hand on my chest. I turned. I don't know how to be held, I said. Mara's breath caught. A buzz from her phone. A message preview flashed. Mara's face tightened. Then she deleted it. That was her pivot. She walked toward me, slow, and stopped close enough that the air warmed. I'm not going home, she said. I didn't touch her. I just held her gaze. Then we keep going, I said. 2 weeks later, the clinic concluded the investigation with a warning letter and no disciplinary action. Mara's record stayed clean, but the experience left a bruise you couldn't see. She took a leave of absence anyway. I need to remember I'm not just a job, she told me. We drove to the coast on a weekday because weekends were crowded with families and memories. We walked the cold sand. She laughed when the wind stole her scarf. At a seaside diner, the coffee was burnt. I grimaced. Mara smirked. You made that for yourself? She echoed, teasing. I stared at the cup, then looked at her. Yeah, I said. Because I keep thinking if I accept something good, it'll be taken. Mara's eyes softened. On the drive home, she rested her head against the window, and I felt a tenderness so sharp it scared me. When we reached her apartment, she turned in the doorway and said, We can stop, if you want. The offer wasn't permission. It was mercy. I took a breath. I don't want to stop, I said. Mara nodded once, like she'd been braced for a different answer. I reached out, slow, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. Our kiss was quiet, not hungry, not performative, just the simplest acknowledgement that we had already changed each other. The next morning, my dad called again. I answered this time. You sound different, he said. Yeah, I said, staring at Mara's sleeping shape on the couch. Hair a mess. Face unguarded. I think I'm finally showing up. He was silent. Then, softer than usual, Good. When I left Mara's apartment, she walked me to the elevator. She didn't kiss me goodbye in the hallway. She squeezed my hand once, then let go before the doors opened. The world was still watching. Months passed. Caleb's threats faded into legal paperwork and occasional bitter emails. Mara's divorce finalized without a dramatic courtroom scene, just signatures and a tired sense of relief. I changed jobs, not because of her, but because I was done living like a placeholder. I took a position in a smaller company with less prestige and more air. Mara returned to medicine part-time, choosing a clinic farther from where she'd built her old identity. We never moved in together quickly. We didn't pretend love fixed everything. Some nights Mara would wake and stare at the dark, as if expecting punishment. Some mornings I'd still make burnt coffee, as if bitterness was proof I hadn't asked for too much. But there were other mornings too. Mara would stand behind me in the kitchen, wrap her arms around my waist and say, "Drink the good one." And I would. If you asked me whether it was worth it, I'd tell you the truth. It cost us things. It cost Mara the illusion that being perfect would protect her. It cost me the comfort of hiding, and it gave us a life that felt chosen, not assigned. A week after I transferred my records, the new clinic emailed confirmation in writing. Mara had insisted on it, no ambiguity, no overlap, no flirting until it was done. She said the power imbalance didn't disappear just because we wanted it to. The anonymous complaint landed 10 days after Caleb's visit to the cafe. Mara said, once, like she was naming weather, he wasn't always like this. He just can't stand looking replaceable. Then she squared her shoulders and sat for the interview anyway. 2 weeks after the warning letter, she took her leave of absence. Not to run, but to breathe. And that was the strange part. The more honest we became, the less it felt like a scandal and the more it felt like a choice. On our first morning back from the coast, I stood at her stove with 2 mugs. One held the burnt coffee I always made when I was bracing for loss. The other, fresh, lighter, almost sweet, steamed in the quiet. Mara slid her badge and her stethoscope into a drawer, then rested her hand on my wrist for one steady second. "Drink the good one," she said. I did,